have their hats on. You don't see it as much, but reach out, say thank you for your service, buy them a meal, just chat with them, share with them, just be their friend, and pray for them because their whole family and them have made a big sacrifice to allow us, Robert Burke, who's my guest today, to be here and just enjoy this beautiful town and this beautiful day in this beautiful Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex. To be here, and it's a little chilly today. Did you notice it was so cold?
Yes, I actually wore a coat for the first time this year. I'm ready for summer.
Yeah, I got up and I put on a sweater. I got out and I went right back in and got my coat and my scarf. And I taught this morning at a convention, and there were men there that were saying they didn't need coffee because they only have coffee when it's freezing cold outside. And of course, you look around, all the women have their coffee. And so it was funny. But I just want to welcome you, Robert, to the show today. Robert Burke is dear to my heart. I read about his story about his son, Bryce, and he had a diagnosis he didn't get diagnosed immediately as a newborn, but it was a family tragedy that happened to his newborn. And Robert's mission over the last, how many years, Robert?
Well, it happened, 20 years ago?
Yes. And your son passed away 2 years ago?
2.5 years ago.
2.5.
Yes.
And so Bryce's story, Robert is going to share with you today, and just his passion for newborns to be tested in many different ways so that they can find out if these diseases can happen and what to do. And so we're just going to interact about that today.
Fair enough.
And so I know it's just a beautiful Saturday. And I just welcome you for being here. You came all the way to Dallas. You were in Houston. Where were you last night?
I was in Houston. I have another little business, and we go down there and do a little show. And so I left about 10 o'clock from my house yesterday morning, picked up some people, drove down there, did the show, got in bed this morning at 4:30.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Got a couple hours sleep.
I appreciate
excited to be here.
Yeah, so I'm glad you rushed back.
If I stutter some words or mispronounce things, that's probably because I'm on about 2.5 hours sleep.
But. So we are also on Facebook Live. So you see the screen, just to let you know. So I want to make sure you can see yourself over there.
I try not to look at myself.
So make sure you don't, because you're getting over to the edge. That's okay. I don't want you to scoot out of the camera. Okay. So why don't you share with us, Robert, kind of what brought you here today?
Okay. Well, my firstborn son, Bryce, his name was Christopher Bryce Burke, but we called him Bryce. He was born in 1996, and he was just a wonderful son, to be honest with you. I mean, I say this all the time laughingly, but we thought we were the perfect parents. I mean, this child was just amazing. He had never been sick a day in his life. He was 19 months old. He went to bed that night. At the time I was married, my wife, his mom was a nurse at Cook Children's Hospital. She worked in the intensive care unit. She was working that night. So I put him to bed like I normally, we would. But something happened during the evening, during the night while he slept. In morning time, we could not wake him. We couldn't get him to wake up. And so we called the ambulance. They came and picked him up. When they got there, they tested him. His blood sugar level was 26. Which
that's very low.
Very low. Probably would have killed an adult, what our doctor said. But they got him to the hospital. His whole system had shut down. They couldn't even find a vein. They actually had to go through his shin. They got his blood sugar level up. But the problem was, because of what happened to him, it caused seizures, which in turn caused brain damage. He was in a coma for a week, in intensive care for 3 weeks, and his initial stay in the hospital was 67 days. About a week into all of that, I think while he was still in a coma, his neurologist came out and said to us, I think we know what was wrong with Bryce. He has a genetic metabolic disorder, which is called MCAD. Now, I've always called it that. There is a long name for it, and I don't know how people pronounce these names. I think it takes a gift to be able to do that. I looked it up.
You wrote it down.
I looked it up, and even when I look at it, I can barely read it. It's medium chain axial dehydrogenase. So that's why it's always been MCAD to me. And anybody, medical professional, will know what you're talking about. But it was a genetic disorder. His mom and I carried this gene, and it caused his blood sugar level to drop dramatically while he slept. And so at least we knew then what it was. At that time, we were very hopeful that he would recover from this. Unfortunately, after that, he needed 24/7 care for the rest of his life. The thing kind of to add it on top of that was that the doctor told us at the time that there was a test available, that if we had had him tested at birth, we would have known he had this disorder, and it's completely treatable with diet, not even medication. And it's simply, when you're apt to have this, you just make sure that you get extra sugar in your diet, which, to be honest with you, is the kind of diet I like to be on, you know. But it especially affects people when they're sick, because you can't fast, and when you're sick, you don't like to eat, you know. And so, but like at nighttime, he would say, you know, give him a bottle of juice or something right before he goes to bed, or something like that with some sugar in it. So it was very frustrating to know then that our son was never going to be the same, but there was a test out there that could have prevented it. My brother's a doctor here in Keller. He had never heard of it. Our pediatrician, OBGYN, had never heard of it.
They'd never heard of the test.
Never heard of these disorders. I found out because I did a lot of research then.
Oh, they'd never heard of the MCAD.
They'd never heard of these genetic disorders or this test that was available. Nobody had. And it is genetic, but nobody in either side of our family had ever had it. And so at the time, the world's leading expert, I was told, was at Baylor Hospital. They have a metabolic institute over there, Dr. Rowe, and he and I became very good friends. I went over there and talked with him several times. He had a board. He put me on his board because I wanted people to know about this. I didn't want what happened to us to ever have to happen to anybody else. And I think the only thing worse than what happened to Bryce, or what could have been, the only thing that could have been worse, is if I'd been told of the test and said no to it. You know, we are not going to do that. But I just wanted people to know about this. And so Bryce came home. He got sick in January, came home in the middle of March. My wife at the time was pregnant with our second child, Ben, who is now a junior in college. And,
Hi, Ben.
Yeah, I don't know if he's listening or not. I posted that I'd be on there, so we'll see. He leads a very busy life out there, having the time of his life, but and is a wonderful son. I have to throw that in there. And he cared for Bryce, loved Bryce. Yeah, it makes me almost tear up. I mean, what a good brother he was. So I just have to, I have to say that. But he was born then in April the 8th, and so it was a very hectic time in our life at the time. But around the 1st of May, I just got to where I couldn't sleep. I had to let people know about this because nobody knew. There was one state at the time that mandatorily tested. They called it a supplemental newborn screening test because every child gets a screening test when they're born. But it normally at the time would test for anywhere from 4 to 7 disorders, depending on which state you lived in.
Isn't it still called a supplemental?
It is.
Yeah.
But now it's more encompassing. Most states now do test for these. There's like 33 or 35 of these metabolic disorders.
Yeah, and they have them. That category they call FOB, which I don't even know what that stands for. So when I was talking to different doctors about it after hearing your story, they said it's FOB MCAD, and I'm like, and so the MCAD is one of many, right?
Yes.
And so they use because they make things so hard. You know, they have to make these medical names that are crazy. But I think for you, if you could share what that means as far as, so Bryce his blood sugar could drop. That sounds a lot like a diabetic, but it is different than having a child with diabetes.
Well, yeah, what this did is it prevents his body from converting certain fats into energy, into sugar. Like our body will normally produce its own sugar. There's a part of him that wouldn't do that. And so just that particular night, he just shut down. And so his blood sugar level just dropped dramatically. We have, I'm not a doctor and the technical stuff is way beyond me, but I know we have this part in us. These fatty acids are broken down and made into sugar. So your body produces that on its own. His body just quit doing that.
So because he just died 2.5 years ago, was he on machines or what happened to him after that?
Well, what happened was because his whole body shut down to protect itself,
Mm-hmm.
he started having seizures. And, they tell me that if a seizure goes on longer than about 10 minutes, brain damage starts happening. He would have seizures that would last for hours. And the dilemma the doctors had was we keep giving him medicine to stop the seizures, but if we give him too much, that could kill him.
Right.
So they didn't, they would just keep giving it and giving it
Right.
and giving it over a period of time until the seizures would finally stop. And then the next day it would start again. And so, I remember they did the CAT scans, MRIs, and all that kind of stuff when he first got there, and he looked normal. His brain looked normal. It was like 2 or 3 weeks later, maybe a little bit longer, they did another one, and you could actually just see just the black around the outside of his skull where all these brain cells had died. And because it happened, I remember our neurologist saying, he was up at the hospital in Washington, D.C., where, they do all the president's physicals and congressmen. He said, I've seen a lot of my senators did tests and their brain was worse than this, but it happened over a lifetime.
Right.
This happened to him within weeks, and you just don't recover from that. And so the seizures caused brain damage, and so he could never walk. He couldn't talk. He had a G button that we fed him for
Wow.
his entire life. He needed 24/7 care his entire life.
That's hard to deal with, in the fact that you could have prevented it if you had known. And I can understand why that would put you on this road to want to let the world know, at least all over the U.S., about the MCAD test, the supplemental test. And, this is one of the things, because today I considered having a veterans show. And I thought, a lot of people are going to be doing that. I really don't want to miss the chance to have you on.
Well, I appreciate that.
And to hear your story, because I know you've been through a lot.
Well, it's one of those things, there's good and bad in everything. And the one thing I like to say is, I never was mad. I never questioned God. I thought, the bad things happen all the time. How can we take something that's bad and make it a good out of it? And so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted people to know this story. And so what I was about to say was after we got home and things kind of settled down, I started calling some people who had a voice that could reach people. And the first was here at Channel 8, Sonia Van Sickle, who was the health reporter here for many years, and I was a big fan of her reporting. And I called her. Back then, you could just call them up and they'd answer the phone and talk to you. And you need to.
Yeah, they've had such,
I hear
time
music
to go
coming
to
on, so I know
commercial.
something's got to happen.
Well, and I know that part of that is you've reached out to so many people that made such a difference. So that's what we'll talk about when we come back.
Okay.
And I want to hear about each, because people need to know when they have something like this, the impact that you've made in the world over the last 20 years. I want them to know how to do that. So I want you to share with us.
Okay, great.
Okay, so stay right here.
Life Solutions Coaching and Counseling in Hazlet, Texas is a full-service wellness clinic providing individual, group, and family counseling, one-on-one coaching for life and wellness, and naturopathic treatments of medical massage therapy combined with essential oils to ensure you reach your health and wellness goals. Sessions are available in person or by phone. Get started on your new life today. Just call 817-232-1363 or go to LifeSolutionsCoachingandCounseling.com or email them at LifeSolutionsCC@yahoo.com.
This is a national health alert from the Healthcare Hotline. Are you on Medicare and or have private insurance and suffer from back pain? MD Topical has a solution for you. Today, you can qualify to receive a pain-relieving treatment, such as a comfortable back brace or a customized pain treatment at little or no cost. Call MD Topical toll-free now, 888-998-7225. It just takes a couple of minutes to qualify for these amazing treatments that have helped thousands of people with severe pain. Your personalized pain treatment will be delivered directly to your door. Call MD Topical toll-free, 888-998-7225, 888-998-7225, or go to mdtopical.com and get started on your road to a pain-free life. Call MD Topical toll-free, 888-998-7225, or go to mdtopical.com.
Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then call Page Publishing at 800-605-6995 immediately. That's 800-605-6995. Page Publishing is looking for authors of all types of books. And unlike most publishers, Page Publishing will take the time to review each and every book submitted to them and give you their feedback. If they like what they read, they'll get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, Barnes & Noble, and other outlets. They handle everything: editing, cover design, copyright protection, printing, publicity, and distribution. So if you've written a novel, children's book, cookbook, inspirational work, poetry, or a biography and want to get it published, then you need to call Page Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-605-6995 now for your free author submission kit. Again, for your free author submission kit, call 800-605-6995. That's 800-605-6995. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. Call Page Publishing at 800-605-6995 for your free author submission kit.
Dish TV is better than cable TV. Why? Because you can save 45% on packages compared to your high-priced cable bill. Wow. Take those giant scissors out and cut the cable and save with Dish TV. Plus, you get a free DVR upgrade to record your favorite shows and free installation. And with Dish Anywhere, you can watch TV for free on your mobile device. Act fast. You can save hundreds of dollars. Does your cable company do that for you? I don't think so. Get all the best TV programming at your fingertips at a fraction of the price of cable TV. So say adios, arrivederci, goodbye to the high cable bill and save up to 45% on Dish TV packages today. These are limited time offers and can change at any time. Call fast. 800-610-5739, 800-610-5739, 800-610-5739. That's 800-610-5739.
The following update is for drivers who pay too much for car insurance due to DUIs, DWIs, tickets, or anything else. Our company specializes in low-cost SR22 auto insurance. We know that mistakes happen and offer free quotes for very affordable auto insurance meant specifically for you, the overpaying high-risk driver. The quote is free, and we'll handle the filing so you can start saving money. Call 800-758-0725. 800-758-0725. 800-758-0725.
I've got to admit, it's getting better, a little better, all the time.
If you'd like to get better, call Ann right now. 214-810-8255. 214-810-TALK. Now more with Ann Beal on 1160 AM KBDT.
Welcome back. We are excited to have Robert Burke here. He is sharing his story about his son, Bryce, who had an illness called MCAD, and as a baby, as a newborn. And you were just sharing with us how you got a passion to start letting everyone know about this test, because your own family members who were doctors didn't even know the disorder or the disease. Is it called a disease or is it called a disorder?
I mean, you know.
Oh, it's not either one.
You know, they call these metabolic disorders. So, you know, whatever. I guess it's, you know, six of one, half of the other. It is what it is. It still did what it did to him, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, I mean, once it happened and we realized really what we were facing the rest of our life, you know, I started going back to the fact of this $25 test. This test.
Is that all it was? At
the time, that's what it was. And that would have completely prevented this. And so, like I was saying right before we went to break, I contacted health reporter for the local ABC affiliate here in Dallas and told her our story, and she wanted to come over the next day. I mean, and it made me feel good that, you know, she understood what I was going through. And, you know, kind of a funny story, by this time I had met Dr. Rowe. My second child had been born. I actually took the blood work down there to the clinic.
That was Baylor.
At Baylor, yes. He has since retired, but I took it down there and gave it to him, and he looked at me and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to wait here. I want to hear," because the way it worked then, or the way it worked was, if we had a child, he had a 50% chance of not carrying the gene, a 50% chance of carrying the gene, like myself, but not having the disorder, and a 25% chance of, so 50% of not having it, 25% having it, but not having the disorder, and a 25% chance of having the disorder, which Bryce did. Ben was the 25% that carries the gene but didn't have the disorder. But so, you know, we became very friendly, and they wanted to interview him. And so he had to go through the Baylor.
Ben had to?
No, when Sonia wanted to interview me, she wanted to get the doctor's perspective and wanted to interview him as part of the story. So, of course,
well, that's important because he's the one who knew about the disorder, and he's the one that knew about the test.
Right. And I agreed with that, but he had to get it approved through Baylor.
Oh, sure.
And so the PR people called me back from Baylor and said, hey, look, we want to do a big push in the fall. Will you wait and do that? We want you to be involved. And I said, man, I'll do anything you guys want me to do. But this is May. A lot of babies are going to be born between now and then. I'm going to do the interview tomorrow with this lady, and then I'll be there with you in the fall. They came back and said, will you wait a few days? We will do a big press conference here, and we'll do it now. So all 6 stations came over to Baylor. We did a press conference. They all carried the story that night.
You contacted us, so you reached out first to contact radio stations.
Well, television stations, radio stations. I ended up traveling all over the country, basically.
So you just picked up the phone and called a station in your area, right? And told them your story, and they were interested.
Right.
And so how many, was it the first station you called?
Well, the Channel 8 here in Dallas was the very first station. Sonia was the first lady that I talked to. She picked it up immediately. Then we were on all 6 stations. And one of my favorite stories of all this, because they wanted me to wait until the fall, remember, and I wouldn't do it. I got a call the next week from a lady who was crying hysterically. I thought it was a prank phone call. She finally calmed down and she said, I just want you to know I saw the story on your son last week. I have a newborn son also. Had an appointment the day after, a couple of days later, with my doctor. And I walked in there and I said, I want to get my child tested. I saw this story on the news. I want to get my child tested. And the doctor said, look, the odds of that happening are so small. I saw it too, but come on. And she said, look, one of 2 things are going to happen. Either my son gets tested or I find a new doctor. So he did the test and she started crying again. And she said, he just called me and my son has MCAD. And I would not have known that if you hadn't shared that story with Bryce. So the fire was lit, but now that threw some gasoline on it. And I knew that this was something, you know, that I had to go more with. And so, yeah, I mean, I would call newspapers, anybody who would listen to me. So, you know, front page Wall Street Journal, New York Times, the Today Show came down and followed Bryce around and did a story for a week-long series about this, trying to let people know about it. So
I'm so proud that you did that. And that is so good for everyone to know that you too can make a change by just reaching out and telling your story. And when we come back, I want Robert to tell us, like, if you don't know to test for that or you don't know what they tested for, some of the signs and symptoms you could spot if you saw any ahead of time, anything like that for babies. And so we'll find all that out. You guys stay right here.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-574-3549. That's 800-574-3549. Again, 800-574-3549.
Hello, golfers. Pat Wheeler here. Are you buying or selling real estate in today's whiskey hot market? Then call a pro. Call James Christie of Dave Perry Miller Real Estate. He's called Realtor Jim, and Realtor Jim will take care of business, your business. He helped me find a condo 2 years ago that I still love. Call Realtor Jim today at 972-365-4401. Realtor Jim, 972-365-4401.
Now you can fly anywhere in the world and pay discount prices on your airline tickets. Book a flight today to London, Paris, Madrid, or anywhere else you want to go and pay a lot less guaranteed. Call the International Travel Department right now at Low Cost Airlines.
800-215-5141. 800-215-5141. That's 800-215-5141.
Want a great deal on a great car? Come to Central Auto House. Smart car buyers know that a quality pre-owned car can save you a lot of money. The industry leaders at Central Auto House all say, let someone else pay for the depreciation while you get a late model, low mileage vehicle to fit your taste and your needs. You'll find sports cars, SUVs, family sedans, trucks, and lots more. The Central Auto House team believes in fair prices and superior service. Check out their current inventory online at centralautohouse.com. That's centralautohaus.com. And test drive the car of your dreams in Dallas at 10550 Plano Road, or come to 640 South Central Expressway in Richardson. You'll be impressed by the selection of cars, the financing options available, and their service during and after the sale. Central Auto House is more than a dealership, it's an experience. Central Auto House, Richardson, 972-437-5555, 972-437-5555, or in Dallas, 214-377-9010, 214-377-9010, or go to centralautohouse.com.
Wake up the echoes.
Going in the end zone, blocked down by Wooden. The game is
The
over.
Fighting Irish.
Tell them to go in there with all they got and win just one for the gift.
So we understand that adversity is what we look for. Because in adversity, there's opportunity.
Glory awaits. Notre Dame football lives here.
Don't miss number 3 in the nation, Notre Dame, as they take on Florida State tonight at 6:30 on your Dallas-Fort Worth home for Notre Dame football. 1160 a.m. KBDT.
To admit it's getting better, a little better all the time.
You're getting better all the time. Now back to Ann Beal on 1160 a.m. KBDT.
Welcome back. Robert, you were sharing with us your mission and your passion of changing people's knowledge about this supplemental test for newborns.
Well, yeah, like I said, when this happened to Bryce, we found out that there was one state that mandatorily tested for this.
What state was it?
Massachusetts.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. They always seem to be a little bit ahead of us sometimes, But
it's such a small state, and that means that there were, 49 other states that didn't test. You had a long road ahead of you.
Exactly. So we started telling the story, like I said, front page of the Wall Street Journal, New York Times. The Today Show called us and wanted to come down and follow Bryce around. There were some organizations that were kind of fighting this about, is it worth it? Is it not? To me, it was a pretty simple, to me, even the math made sense, because I remember going over to speak to our insurance carrier who was based here in Dallas. And I said, look, Bryce's medical bills the first 67 days were a little over $10,000 a day, almost $750,000. It went into the untold millions over his lifetime. He had this disorder when he was 19 months old. He passed away right after the age of 20. So 18 years of this. And I went over and talked with them, and to them it was kind of like, we want the state to pay it, we want the hospitals to pay it, all this kind of stuff. Everybody was kind of passing the buck, if you will.
And it wasn't even that much. And
I said, $25. I said, the odds are that 1 in 15,000 babies born will have one of these 30-some disorders. You've spent, $250,000 on my son. Let's divide that up. If you paid $25 a test, it's way below $15,000. So it made financial sense to me, But those are battles that, are really hard to fight.
Yeah, those are like sacred cow battles.
Yeah,
right
my battle was basically just to let people know about it, make people aware of it. And so we started doing that. And anybody that wanted to talk to me, I travel around, I'd speak at churches, give my testimony, tell the story about Bryce. anybody that would listen. So, I mean, we had a lot of people, that did. And then once we kind of, things started to change and the momentum changed, and we got groups like, some big charitable organizations got behind it who have, tremendous power financially. You could see the change, and more states started, doing it, and at least the knowledge was out there. Another story, I remember my nephew, Bryce's cousin, he got married 4 or 5 years ago, had his first child 2 years ago, and his doctor was here in South Lake. And he said, look, when my child is born, I want to have them tested. My cousin, Bryce Burke, had this metabolic disorder, and so we want to make sure that our child is healthy. And the doctor goes, well, we know Bryce. He said, now, I've never met him, but because of his story, 16, 17 years ago, every child in our practice has been tested.
That's great.
And so
I do think it's evolved like that, but still it's not everyone. And I know that you and I have had some long talks about my feelings about genetics, and the genetic theory and all that. And I believe very much in that diseases are nutritional deficiencies. So we've been all through that. But no matter what causes it, finding out what's happening is very important. And,
Right.
and when they look at the mutated genes, they are just looking at what's been caused by deficiencies, but the genes really are mutated, and the genes, in my opinion, can be repaired. But you can't repair them if you don't know to repair them.
Right.
And so part of what you found is they do it through diet. What ended up being, it wasn't a pill or drug or anything like that. It was truly a diet they suggested.
Well, his particular disorder, which was one of 30 some,
Right.
was the most treatable. It was the most common,
Mm.
but it also was catastrophic if it happened to you, because normally it wasn't something like getting a cold and you get worse, or you start getting heart pain and it gets worse and worse. Normally, if this affected a child, it would do what it did to Bryce, which was immediate, overnight, within hours, and you just couldn't come back from it.
Now, do you know if they can test for, when they get sudden infant death syndrome, is some of those disorders or those causes of that they test for as well? Do you know?
Here's what I was told. Okay. You've got these 30 some disorders. Some of them are treatable. Bryce is being the most common and very easily treatable. Some of them were not. What they found out that, you hear SIDS a lot more than you hear it now.
Yes.
Because they have found that a great many of those children who died of SIDS had one of these metabolic disorders that, affected them, and they died. And so that was one of the big fights at the time, was why let somebody know if their child has already died? And I said, look, if you're a parent and you wake up and your child is in their bed dead, you want to know what happened.
Definitely.
That didn't make no sense to me at all, But yeah, to answer your question, and how they found that out was they would have siblings that would get tested, and they would find out that they had one of these disorders. And they thought, well, if it happened to the sibling, probably happened to their their sibling who passed away. And they actually exhumed some of the bodies and tested them and found out that they had some of these disorders.
Well, that's what I was wondering,
Yeah.
Because it's so mysterious what happens. It would be great to be able to have that test to prevent any of that.
Right.
And that would be so great. I do think that when you think of them saying, oh, you don't need that test, and that's not that, that's so small, the percentage. But I was telling you what's crazy about that is they'll do an ultrasound, on a mom like nothing. They'll go in and do a test for Down syndrome and stuff. They'll actually take, liquid from the baby. They'll go into the sac inside the mom, and the odds of a child having Down syndrome are very low as well. But they do that even on a 20-year-old. Down syndrome is more likely on older women, with their children. But they'll do that. They have all these tests that they do on babies, and I wonder how they decided what test is worth it and what test is not worth it.
Well,
Because I've had, they did 6 ultrasounds on me when I was pregnant. It was crazy, but a lot of it, they're worried about legal stuff. So it was just
Right.
insane. They didn't question that at all.
What I found funny was a lot of times when I would go in and do these interviews, they would also want to get a doctor's point of view. And a lot of times the doctor would say, the odds of it happening are so small. And I'd say, I don't consider 1 in 15,000. I said, how many people, a couple of weeks ago wanted to go buy a lotto ticket, and the odds are 400 million to 1. And every one of us who bought one of those tickets that night thought, hey, this could happen to me. This could happen to me. 1 in 400 million. but 1 in 15,000 for the health of your child. I mean, those are not good odds.
No, and that's like the town that, and I don't really know the population of Hazlitt or Azle where we have our clinics, but it's small. And so that means one person in that town. You know, there's towns, my college town I went to was like 30,000 people. Well, that would be 3 people in that town or 2 people in that town.
Right.
I mean, everybody knows everybody a lot. So that's a lot.
I don't like those odds for the health of my child.
No. And so definitely I can understand you being so passionate about the mission. I know that for you now that your son passed away, how did that happen?
Well, basically, you know, he's in a wheelchair or in bed. He's not getting any activity, and his body just basically fell apart. I mean, we actually had to go. In Bryce's lifetime, he probably had 12, 13 major operations. Wow. I mean, he had, you know, G buttons put in. He had this thing put in his belly that would feed medicine right into his spine that would let him relax. If not, he'd get as stiff as a board. But if you give it to him through his G button, it would just knock him out for days. So we had that, couple of replacements. Had to go in and put titanium rods down his spine because he started to get scoliosis because he's just no activity. The last thing that happened was we had to actually go in and take out his entire lower intestine. It was twice as big as a normal intestine, so it was causing a lot of problems. And they put in ileoscopy, which is like a colonoscopy, but it's up higher. And he had complications from that. And we had him back in 3 different times for that. And the 3rd time, we thought, you know, we'll just go in there and they'll clear him out and he'll be fine. But it was one of those moments you'll never forget. And the doctor, I remember I was there sleeping in the bed. He was in intensive care. And I woke up, it's about 2 o'clock in the morning. There were 13 or 14 doctors and nurses around him. And I've learned one thing in those 18 years, that's not a good sign.
No.
And his blood pressure had dropped and they were having to give him medication to keep his blood pressure up. And that morning they took us into a room and said, look, here's the situation. He's kind of blown a hole in his small intestine and we can go in and fix it. We'll have to do another operation and move the ileoscopy to the other side. But he has this massive infection inside of his body that we could literally just pour antibiotics in him and we're not going to be able to save him. And, you know, we just said, this little boy who, you know, at the time was, you know, had just turned 20, he'd been through enough. And we just didn't feel like it was fair. As Christians, we knew what was in store in the future. And so we just made the decision that, you know, we weren't going to do that. And I remember the doctor coming over to me and I said, you know, he said, what we'll do is we'll keep him on his medication, keep his blood pressure up. When you're ready, we'll take him off. And I said, so what are we talking, weeks, months? He looked at me and he said, no, we're talking hours. So we were able to call all his family and friends. His school teachers came up there, people from our church. And we spent, you know, 10 hours just, you know, talking to Bryce and holding him and all these people there it really was a glorious time. I don't know how else to describe it. And but we took him off the medicine around 7 o'clock. It was just his brother, his mom, and I, and everybody else was in the waiting room, was packed. And I just said, you know, these guys have all played a part in his life. They need to be in here. So we let everybody come back in. We held him, touched him, talked to him, got to kind of say our final words. And around 10 o'clock that night, he passed away and he went to a lot better place. And, you know, it was time for I saw a thing on Facebook the other day for the caterpillar to, you know, take his wings and, you know, he's in a better place now. But that's what happened. And he had just turned 20 years old. So we'd gone through that for about 18 and a half years.
And you know, I know that's hard for everyone to hear. And it just seems like such a tragedy because he was so young. But that is part of why these tests are important for your baby or someone you know who has a baby. So these kinds of things, it'd be for only $25. I wonder how much it is now.
Yeah.
And does the parent still pay for it?
Well, now insurance does pay most of that. And most states now do it. You need to check with your state and with your doctor to make sure. Now most are doing about 40 to 50 tests for about 40 to 50 disorders, of which these 30 for the most part are covered. But I'm not going to sit here and say that every state 100% is doing that. So you need to ask your doctor. But, you know, when that happened, you know, and how we started talking was about the new tests that I had found. And I'd like to talk a couple of minutes about that. Because after this happened and Bryce passed away, I was doing some research about a month ago because I wanted to see where these states were with all of this. And I just on the internet pulled up a company that now has devised a new genetic test that tests for over 190 disorders. And, you know, you may argue at some of that, but, you know, as a parent, I mean, it's just like, I can't even describe you the feeling that I had when I saw that. You know what I did was I called some people, some friends of mine who would know about this, and asked them if they knew about the test, and said, no, we haven't heard of that. And I go, here we go again.
Well,
you know,
and
people got to know about this.
Yes. And I do think that, that where I get hung up with you, and we're finally on the same page in a lot of ways after hearing each other out quite a bit, that for me, it's not the testing that I worry about. It's that MDs are not taught how to cure anything chronic. They don't know how to do it. They don't know what causes it. They know how to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, with MD's treatment, you're not going to get better. So a naturopathic doctor is taught in med school what causes chronic and how to get rid of it. So a naturopathic doctor would be the person that you go to. But in so many, you know, like Texas, we don't have too many of those.
Right.
Even a nutritionist. So we both agreed that, you know, you get second opinions, you go to different kinds of doctors for different kinds of treatments.
Well, when we come back, let me at least
Yes.
let the listeners know about this
We
test.
are. That's what
Okay.
we're going to spend the last segment
Okay.
about.
Good deal.
And then I'd like you to tell them kind of what it entails, if it's blood.
Because you
or
need to hear about
whatever.
this, because I know
And,
you probably haven't.
And it's cool. I mean, and there's a few different ones that do it. And I think that it's fascinating. And people are really getting into genetic testing lately to find out about a lot of things, like their history, their, you know, because it's the DNA. It's cool.
Right, right.
So when you come back, we'll talk about
Okay,
this
great.
big genetic testing. So
Great.
stay here.
Life Solutions Coaching and Counseling in Hazlet, Texas is a full-service wellness clinic providing individual, group, and family counseling, one-on-one coaching for life and wellness, and naturopathic treatments of medical massage therapy combined with essential oils to ensure you reach your health and wellness goals. Sessions are available in person or by phone. Get started on your new life today. Just call 817-232-1363 or go to LifeSolutionsCoachingandCounseling.com or email them at lifesolutionscc@yahoo.com.
This is a national health alert from the Healthcare Hotline. Are you on Medicare and or have private insurance and suffer from back pain? MD Topical has a solution for you. Today, you can qualify to receive a pain-relieving treatment, such as a comfortable back brace or a customized pain treatment at little or no cost. Call MD Topical toll-free now, 888-998-7225. It just takes a couple of minutes to qualify for these amazing treatments that have helped thousands of people with severe pain. Your personalized pain treatment will be delivered directly to your door. Call MD Topical toll-free, 888-998-7225, 888-998-7225, or go to mdtopical.com and get started on your road to a pain-free life. Call MD Topical toll-free, 888-998-7225, or go to mdtopical.com.
Do you want to look 10 years younger? At Total Med Solutions, we have solutions to help you look and feel great. Try our Botox special with 20 units for only $173, or replace your lip volume that you've lost over the years with a 1 milliliter syringe of Juvederm dermal filler for as little as $389.
Do you want to lose 10, 20, even 100 pounds? Ask the experts at Total Med Solutions, where they provide physician-supervised prescription weight loss solutions for as little as $199 for a 30-day program.
Are you tired of shaving? Come to Total Med Solutions, where you can get beach ready with laser hair removal starting at only $99 for 6 sessions. All laser hair procedures are done on the latest Almost Soprano ice machines that work great for all skin types.
Call Total Med Solutions at 972-992-5040 to schedule your appointment. Consultations are always free.
Just check it out. Again, that number is 972-992-5040.
Are you taking Viagra and tired of paying $50 per tablet? Marley Drug has generic Viagra for just $10 per tablet. $10 for generic Viagra is a savings of $40 per dose. Call now and get free shipping on 10 tablets or more of generic Viagra. Marley Drug is a North Carolina pharmacy licensed in all 50 states. For information, go to marleygenerics.com or call us at 800-515-3062. That's 800-515-3062.
Got to admit, it's getting better, a little better all the time.
And now here's more Getting Better with Ann Beal on 1160 AM KBDT.
Robert is telling us about genetic testing of finding out 190 different diseases that are possible in a human being. So his passion, based on what happened to his son Bryce, is to have the testing done. You can do it at any age, I guess, but you're really looking at having it done on your children.
Right, right. You know, and we were talking during the break about Bryce's life and the effect that he had on people. I mean, I remember at his service, again, here's a 20-year-old boy who for 18 and a half years of his life could not walk, talk, 24/7 care. The church was packed. We actually had to go out and tell people to come in because we were 30 minutes late in starting. The church was packed. And I sat there and I thought, you know, of this about him and the effect that he'd had on lives. And there's no telling how many people, you know, he's affected for the good. And so that's what's the saving grace for me as a parent, of knowing that, you know, that good did come from that. And as I was sitting there and I was trying to read up on this, and I found out this new test, you know, that kind of dagger went in, and I said, boy, now people need to know about this. I got to start over. So I contacted this company. Let me tell you a little bit about the company.
Sure.
They came out of Mount Sinai Hospital Organization in New York. So they're very well respected, very well known. And they have developed this test, and it's a DNA test. So you can do it with a swab of the cheek. You can do it with a blood sample. You know, you can do it with saliva sample. And they test for over 190 disorders that will affect a child. The test itself is 95% effective. I mean, accurate.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have one of if they come back and say you have a propensity for one of these, it's about an 80% or higher chance that you're going to have it. And about 1 in 4 to 1 out of 150 children, depending on their ethnic background, will have one of these disorders. And it's kind of like preventive medicine. You know, you talk about that a lot in your show. My dad was a doctor, big believer in that. Before anybody I ever heard of, he believed in that. But if you know that
your dad was a DO.
He was a DO, yeah.
Yes,
and my brother is a DO too.
Yeah.
But you know, it's basically like if you know that you have a propensity for this, you can start preparing for it. And so you can start treatment now, and it's so much better than waiting for it to happen. In Bryce's case, it happened just bam. There was nothing that could be done. But so that's what's amazing about this. So I'm doing some research on this company. They're based out of Connecticut. Sema4, and it's fantastic. And if you want to find out more about them and their test, the test is the Nautilus. I'm sorry, I pronounced that wrong. I've been practicing that all day long. They're going to kill me. But it's sema4.com/Natalis. You see how I can get that?
Is that Natalus?
Natalis.
LIS.
Yes. So it's SEMA 4, the number 4.com/Natalis. And you can get all the information about this. Now, if you want to get some more information about Bryce's story and want to contact me about if you want to get some more information about it, that you can go to briceshouse.org. But this test that they have tests for 190 some disorder. It'll also test on medications. Some of us shouldn't take certain medications, but you don't know about it. I was reading this morning before I came over here about, I don't remember the disorder or the disease, but when children were in hospitals, they took aspirin, but it causes this disorder, you know. And so if you know that your child shouldn't take aspirin or a certain antibiotic or whatever, you know that beforehand. And it's just knowledge. 90% of the people want to know about that, especially with their children. And so when I saw this test, I thought, nobody knows about it. People have got to know about it. So again, you got to go check out their website. It's SEMA4.com/Natalis.
And that you were telling us how much it costs, and it sounds like it would be about what maybe the MCAD might cost now, maybe $250, $350.
Well,
But the MCAT is paid for by insurance.
Yes. This is not covered by insurance yet. It's another battle that's got to be fought so that they can see. And I honestly believe that one day it will be, because they'll come to their senses again, just like they did with these metabolic disorders, and say it's preventive medicine. It's like the dentist. Now they'll pay to get your teeth cleaned twice a year because they know how much money it saves them. Eventually this will be. But the cost of this is $375, which I know is high. But, I mean, the peace of mind and all that kind of stuff. Now they do. The diseases are everything from, diabetes to cholesterol to high blood pressure, those kinds of things as well, which, that's why I'm saying just my part of it is I just want you to talk to not just the MDs, but the NDs or the nutritionists, because most of these diseases can be cured with food or supplements, right? That's your belief, and that's your battle. And I'm on board with you, to be honest with you. I'm there 100%. My battle is basically letting people know that this test is out there, because they will, if you find it, they will contact you. If you have one, they have genetic counselors. You can make the decision of where you want to go with it.
Well, and that's what's cool about it. They do let you know that. And then, of course, you can go to anyone else. But the information
It's the knowledge. We need the knowledge. It's there.
Yes, it is.
It's
and,
there.
So we had lots of fun chatting about this a few days before, just going all around about how we we're going to do the show. Because Bryce's story is so important. Robert Burke is so important. His passion is so important.
Well, thank you for having me on the show.
And the testing will only help you out. And there's lots of different companies, but this one is really great. And so we just wanted to let you know, thank you guys. And we are all about getting better. So just stay tuned. Next week, I have Carl Ford, who's the head of intelligence for George Bush when he was president. He'll be on next week to talk a little bit about the Korean summit and then all about safety here if you're worried about the caravan or any of that. He'll be with us next week. So hang here to get better. Take care.